So I did a video last week on some of the best decisions that I've made in my career that has allowed me to become a multi-millionaire. In this video, I want to do the opposite of that. I want to give you some of the worst decisions that I've made in my entire career and how some of those decisions possibly could have even bankrupted me and how I'm actually still standing here today. I'm gonna break them all down for you so hopefully you don't make those decisions going forward. If you're new to my channel, my name's Rutherford, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, live in South Florida now, flipped and wholesaled hundreds of houses, own almost 100 rental properties. And if you wanna learn more about real estate, go to theaustinrutherford.com. In business, you're usually just a few small decisions away from losing it all. And those times that you do make a mistake, when you're lucky enough that you don't lose it all, it's just a punch in the gut and you may have to take a couple steps back. You have to get up and keep going. You know, if you lay there in misery for the rest of your life, you're never gonna get to where you wanna be. You know, take the punches and continue moving forward. And if you stick to the end here with me, I'm gonna tell you the single biggest lesson that I learned that's changed my life forever. One of the first losses I had early on was when I bought a house because I wanted to have a deal. We were doing a lot of deals and our pipeline was a little shallow at this point. So we got an opportunity from a wholesaler. We ran the numbers, which we thought were accurate. They ended up not being accurate. And we bought the deal simply because we just wanted to keep that pipeline going. And if you look here, we ended up buying this house for $68,000, but we borrowed $94,000 for the entire deal because we had an estimated repair budget of about $26,000. Now the problem is once we bought this, we got into the house, we realized that it was gonna take a lot more than $26,000 to renovate this house. We also had a pain getting people out of the house. People broke into the house every single day for like 7 to 10 days straight. We literally had to pay somebody to sleep in the house to keep the other homeless people out of breaking into the house every single night. We had to hire the cops. We had to get the cops to come in and kick them out, boarded up the windows and the doors. They ripped the boards off of the windows. It was a nightmare house. And then the kicker of everything, we finally got the people out. My team went to plan the renovation. One of the guys from across the street walked over and was like, "What are you doing here?" And we're like, "Well, hey, you know, we own this house. We're getting ready to renovate it." And he was like, "Well, this is my block and this is my hood and you got to run things by me." I was like, "Oh, it's that type of party." So I just ended up cutting my losses. We were already probably going to lose money because we misran all the numbers on the front end before buying it, but we may have been able to squeak out of it and break even over the next 3, 6, 9 months in the hopes of not having more break-ins or not having any other issues. I just decided to cut the ropes and sell the property and move on. So we listed it for sale, and as you can see on this HUD here, we ended up selling it for $62,500. So we sold it for less than what we bought it for, but that's not all there was. Once you add in all the other costs, remember we borrowed $94,000 to fund this deal. So we had to pay interest to our lender just for them allowing us to use the money. We then had closing costs that we had to pay for when we bought the house. Then we had selling costs, which we had to pay for when we sold the house. And we had realtor fees to sell the property in the first place. So all of those fees adding all together, I ended up losing about $20,000 on this deal. I know we only sold it for like $6,000 less, but my overall net loss was about $20,000 on one deal. Another bad decision was another house that we bought in Columbus, Ohio. We ended up buying it for about $25,000. I thought this was gonna be a home run deal. I thought we were gonna renovate it, sell it for $350,000, make $150,000 in net profit after all the renovation work. And then from that point, everything went wrong. At the end of the day, I ended up getting comfortable in where I was in my life and in my business. And basically what I did is I gave a contractor of mine, theoretically my checkbook. We gave him kind of open books to then go out and renovate the house. So there was nobody verifying what he was doing. He was just renovating the house. And what happened was we ended up spending way more money on the renovation than we needed to and that we had budgeted for because he just was spending money getting the job done. And the property took significantly longer for us to do than what we planned for on the front end. And we ended up selling this property finally for $325,000. And if you look at this picture here, when we sold it, I actually got back $95,000 in my pocket. The problem was that $95,000 was not profit. Only about $7,000 of that $95,000 was actual profit. So think about this. We went way over budget, way over timeline. The reason I got back 95 grand is because I had to front almost $90,000 of my personal money because we overspent on what we had borrowed from our private money lender to do this deal. So if I didn't have that 90 grand to put into a deal to basically break even, what would we have done? we may have had to foreclose on the house or lost the house to the lender because we would have been unable to perform. So when you get into deals, this could have ended very, very poorly. Like we blew a $150,000 profit to $7,000. It's a $143,000 margin. What if we only planned on making $40,000 on this house in the first place? We could have lost $100,000 with flipping this house. So when you buy houses, you have to understand that there are risks associated and make sure that you buy it right. So hopefully like this, worst case scenario, everything goes wrong. You just make less money than what you were hoping to make in the first place. Another not so good idea of mine is I ended up starting a data company, basically an email marketing company. And I really didn't understand the space, but I knew that there was a lot of money to be made in the space, and I invested heavily in it up front, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to get this thing off the ground. And we started doing it, we started making money, but what I realized was like this was not my skill set, nor did I have any interest in operating a business like this. And the people that I hired came and left and came and left and came and left. And I really just never had any success with it at the end of the day. And it was a distraction to my other businesses. And at that point, I was losing money. So what did I decide to do? I ended up selling that company to another individual for way less money than I had invested into the business in the first place. And I ended up losing about $200,000 off of trying to start a new business in the first place. So lesson learned there, don't have shiny object syndrome. Just because something looks good, there's a million ways to make $1 million. Just because something looks good doesn't mean that you should get into that or that you are good at that business or that you are going to have time for that business. You know, make sure you build your businesses first and then build other businesses that somewhat relate, and or you have amazing business partners that can work on those new businesses so the businesses can be profitable without you having to learn everything from the jump. So that was my lesson learned. Don't have shiny object syndrome. And one of the last things I learned, this necessarily wasn't a loss, but I think a lot of people misconstrue this, and I want to make it abundantly clear how this actually took place. I ended up making $100,000 on my first house flip, but what people don't understand is the 16 months before that. I hired a mentor 16 months before that. I pulled out new credit cards, maxed out my credit cards, paid $25,000 for a mentor. For the next 16 months of my life, this is what it looked like. I was worried about paying off the 25 grand. It was zero interest for 18 months. So I had 18 months to pay it off. I was valeting cars 50 to 60 hours a week, every single week. I was going to college, taking 15 credit hours the entire time. And I was trying to start my real estate business on the side. I remember sleeping at my parents' house, literally writing handwritten letters, sending it out to sellers in hopes of them wanting to sell me their property, or going to look at houses every single day, or calling sellers, phone calls every single day in hopes of somebody wanting to sell me their property. Then I got this property. 10 months into that process, I got the house under contract, but I needed $250,000 to fund that deal. I didn't have $250,000. So then I had to go out and I had to raise the money from somebody else, other people's money. People always say it's impossible to do this. It's not. First deal, raised private money to fund the deal, bought it, renovated it. I actually slept in the house for the last 2 nights to finish the project because the contractors walked off the job. So there was a lot of struggle, a lot of heartache to get this thing done. Hired a mentor, 10 months later, bought my first house. 6 months later, sold that first house. So 16 months entirely. And then I made $100,000 in profit, which was amazing. But if I'd have given up on any time before that 16 months ended, I never would be sitting in front of this camera here today. So the lesson learned there is don't give up too soon. You know, you can be just on the edge of breaking through and you give up. Do not give up. Good things happen. And like I said at the beginning of this video, if you stick around, I'm gonna give you my biggest lesson learned. And the biggest thing that I've learned over my career is to have multiple streams of income. If you have one income and it goes south or it does bad, or you have a rental portfolio and you have a lot of evictions that month, or you're flipping houses and you don't have any houses closed that month, or you try to start a new company and the new company goes bankrupt, or whatever it is, if you don't have other streams of income, you're screwed. Now, if you have 7 streams of income and 2 of them are bad, but 5 of them are crushing it, it's not the end of the world because you have 5 other streams of income coming in. So people always said that like all millionaires have 7 streams of income. Never really understood what that meant until you're actually in the position where you have to understand what that means and you need multiple streams of income, because in business you realize everything doesn't always go according to plan. So you got to be building multiple streams of income. Don't do this too soon though. Build one, become amazing in something, and then start getting multiple streams of income within that. So comment below. Let me know what questions you have or thoughts you have. While you're down there, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It'd be greatly appreciated. It allows me to get in front of other people to hopefully add value to them. And make sure you hit that subscribe and notification bell so you can get all this content going forward. As always, appreciate you being here. We'll see you on the next one.